Alright, let's spend a little time on chapter 4, looking at what are the roles that you and I need to assume in order to be a teacher. And you might have wondered, what, me a teacher? I guess 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when I first started teaching, didn't think I'd last that long. But, hung in there, and it's been a good career. But we're going to look in this chapter about assuming the role of a teacher. And I guess people have in their minds this is what a teacher ought to be, because usually we've had one at some time in our life. And so let's take a look at what your author has to say here in this chapter. First thing he covers is student needs, and uses a very old model called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This was created by Dr. Abraham Maslow. He studied human behavior for a long time and pretty much put down these truths that became his hierarchy of needs, and they are many times shown as a pyramid, and where the first few of the bulleted points that we're going to be covering sort of form the base of the pyramid, and then you just kind of go up towards the apex of the pyramid with all the others, and those are kind of like higher order kinds of needs. And so let's start at the basics. And Maslow says that the most basic human need is physical needs. And that's for food, water, shelter, those kinds of things. You and I probably know and have seen students that come to school hungry. There's no way that they're going to be able to learn if they haven't had a meal within 24 hours or maybe even longer. Sometimes the only meals that they get during the day are the ones that they get from school. So those physical needs are important. They may be homeless. I remember watching last week about the story of a young lady on the CBS Evening News that was abandoned by her parents. Fortunately, a worker at her school took her in, and she just recently graduated from high school and has been accepted into Harvard University. She overcame those kinds of basic needs for shelter. But yet, for every success story like hers, there are a lot of situations that don't come out as good. And so the physical needs need to be met. And once those physical needs are met, then we can go up one level to safety needs. Right now, that's a major topic at our schools today. Students want to feel safe. We have all kinds of reports of students going into schools with guns and knives and all kinds of weapons. But yet, school bullying is also another issue where a student's safety to them seems to be threatened. Now, let's kind of move from the student right now and sort of look at the teacher. How safe do you feel at your school or in your classroom? There are some schools where you're taking basically a chance every day whenever you walk into that classroom. So these safety needs are important. And certainly we spend a whole lot of money and a whole lot of time and a whole lot of resources at our schools to provide a safe and accommodating environment for our students and for the teachers. and administrators that work there. So that's next up on the level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And then right above that are social needs. Needs that you and I have to be around people. I don't know anybody who wants to go out there and live in a cave for the rest of their lives and not be around people. Obviously, there's some times where you and I might want to be by ourselves, kind of away from the kids and the family and so forth, and also from work. But you and I all have some social needs to interact with our spouses, with our children, with our friends, with our relatives, and all of those. And so school provides a wonderful opportunity for young people and for children to be able to interact with each other, interact with adults, interact with people their own age. But these social needs are a little higher than safety needs. And Maslow also talks that, many times within a person's life, these needs kind of change position. And so just kind of keep that in mind. The second to highest need is egotistic. Our egos. Don't you and I sometimes would like to kind of have our egos kind of stroked a little bit, to kind of know that we're doing a good job, get complimented on something we've done well. Obviously, we know a whole lot of people who are very uncomplimentary in their approach to life, but you and I and everyone likes to be told that we've done a good job, that we're getting some positive feedback, some positive reinforcement from those people that are around us. You want to kind of turn a student on, start complimenting them when they deserve it, and see what happens. It's just amazing to see the turnaround that can take place when a student is finally getting some positive stroke from a teacher when they deserve it. Now, obviously, when they do wrong, they deserve to be told and should be told that they're doing wrong. And if they break the rules and there are punishments there, they need to be punished. But when they do something well, then you need to pile on the praise and just keep it going. And it's almost like once they get that taste of success, they want more of it. They want more of it. It's kind of like a drug addict. They want more and more of that drug to make them feel good. Well, positive reinforcement can help them feel good from an ego standpoint. And especially whenever you've never been told that it's important. And finally, self-fulfillment. Maslow kind of looks at self-fulfillment as a very rare occurrence when a person reaches their fullest potential. And I don't know a whole lot of people who have ever done that. I can't give you any kind of example of a person that has reached their and performed to their highest level. I remember back in the 4th grade, I did a report on a man named Albert Schweitzer. Dr. Schweitzer was, in the words of the author of that article, the last Renaissance man. And once I kind of got into the studying about Dr. Schweitzer, a Renaissance man is a person that had like world-class ability in a number of things. It's very, very rare for somebody to be world-class maybe in one type of endeavor. But Dr. Schweitzer was a world-class physician. In fact, much of the knowledge we have right now about malaria was put together by him in his hospital in the Congo. He was a world-class Anglican theologian, and also he was a world-class musician. He was a world-class organist, and from what I can remember, I think he played some of this classical music, and that was how he kind of raised money for his hospital. He'd go out and do some world concerts in all of the big cities and raise thousands and thousands of dollars so that he could go back and work with his patients and support his patients down there in the Congo. And so very rarely do you find someone who is world class in not only one in only one thing, but not only three. And so we will, I guess, the rest of us try to keep striving to fulfill our potential. And so those are the 5 levels of hierarchy, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, one of the things you and I want to do is try to keep our students occupied and to give them the opportunity to learn. And for us to do that, we need to kind of cultivate a climate for learning in our classrooms. In order to do that, we've got to keep our students motivated. We need something for them every day for them to do, and make sure that they are motivated to achieve a goal, to do better at something than the day before. We also need to keep students informed and make them a part of their learning. Tell them what's coming up. Tell them what they need to know. I use Moodle as I guess a help for my lecture classes, and it's a wonderful place for me to kind of keep information out there for students, and they can, take a look at it whenever they have an opportunity, so that they know what's going on and they're current with that. Because let's face it, students get absent sometimes, they'll get sick, and they get behind. And I've just really like the opportunity to be able to put my course content out there for them to stay up to speed with that. Approach students as individuals. Every one of them is different, and so you and I have got to really be able to adapt and to kind of find the right buttons to push for every student to motivate them and to get them to move from where they are to where they need to be. And like I said before, give credit when due. Stroke that ego. Just heap on the praise for them when they do well. Then criticize positively. And it's kind of like the half glass, half full kind of thing. You can tell them what they did wrong and say, Johnny, Susie, you did this wrong. Or else you can tell them, well, Johnny, Susie, this is what you need to do to get it right. Now, maybe that's a little play on words, but I used to just tell students what they were doing wrong. That was easy for me to do. But I've tried this approach. It's a little more complicated because I have to kind of, at least in my mind, I have to kind of think out the sequence of what they need to do right. But I've found that more often than not, this is a really good technique to use, because you, you and me and they know that they did wrong. But they don't always know what they need to do or what they should have done to get it right. And certainly, we all learn from our mistakes. We all learn from from those kinds of experiences. But yet, that type of positive criticism will help them see, this is what I need to do to get better. This is what needs to be done so I can improve. Then be consistent. Students, I think, are looking for people that are honest with them, and teachers. You know, they know whenever you're not sincere, or when people compliment them and they're not sincere. But you and I need to be consistent in our approach to dealing with our students. We don't need to have some quote unquote pet students that we treat differently than others. That's a recipe for disaster. We need to be consistent in our message, consistent in our actions, consistent in our dealings with them, so that they know what to expect from us. Now, that's easier said than done. I can guarantee you, whenever I am at the top of my game, usually during the fall of every year, compared to the spring of the year, whenever the pollen counts is in the millions, and my head feels like a bunch of, like a brick wall, and I just feel lousy for about 2 or 3 months. Kind of hard for me to be consistent on a daily basis, but I've got to make that effort, regardless of what how I feel physically. Yeah, I'll have to take my allergy medicine or get an allergy shot or something like that. But there are some days that you and I just aren't into it. We're off our game. And so I think students are a bit accommodating with that. This is just my opinion for what it's worth. I think they can realize that we're human too, just like them. Too many times they put us up on a pedestal, but yet letting them see, okay, we make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. Fix the mistake, move on. At least they can see that we're human, just like them. And then that kind of leads to the last point: admit our errors. You and I are not above making mistakes. Just today, as I recorded this right here, I was not on my top of my game during one of the math classes. It looked like everybody and their cousin needed me either on the phone or in the hall, and I mean, I just couldn't get started before something else come up, and let's face it, they were important things that had to be done. But as for teaching, I was making mistakes that I shouldn't and wouldn't ordinarily make, but I just wasn't with it for one of my classes this morning. I admitted my errors and went back, corrected them, showed them the right way, and what they thought of that, that's up to them. Maybe 20 years ago, when I would have just started, I would have beat myself to death about that. Now, it don't. Tomorrow's a new day. I'll do my best to get it right tomorrow. So don't be afraid to make a mistake. What are some traits of the teacher? Well, first one on the list, sincerity. We want to be sincere. We don't want to be fake. We just want to be real in front of our students so they can trust us, respect us. We also need to be accepting of the student. Let's face it, there are going to be some students that are probably a whole lot easier for us to accept than others. But we've got to be impartial. We have to treat them all the same, and set our standards high so that they'll meet them. Personal appearance and habits. Let's face it. We need to look the part. We don't need to be dressing just like they dress come to school. I don't know, maybe your school has uniforms for the teachers and for the students. Most colleges don't. It's kind of difficult to kind of tell the students from the teachers sometimes. I remember walking by a classroom during my graduate days at LSU down in Himes Hall, and I saw some students around the desk, and they were kind of like in a circle, and they had this guy. I thought he was just kind of giving a report, but he had a t-shirt looked like he'd slept in, and these busted up, full of holes, bell-bottom jeans, and the guy was barefooted. Found out later on he was a teacher. That wouldn't get it where I've worked. We need to look the job as well as emulate the job and our habits. Look, let's not tell students they need to keep their work areas clean whenever our office looks like a bomb hit it. We need to practice what we preach, like the old cliche goes. And that's in our habits, and we need to be consciously aware of that on a daily basis. Our demeanor, I've kind of touched on that before, but look, everybody's different. We want to try to stay calm, cool, collected in our demeanor. You come in mad and you're having a bad day, our students are going to pick up on that. So we kind of set the pace for the day right up front. Number 5, and probably the most important, safety practices and accident prevention. We need to be safe every day, every minute that those students are in class. And we shouldn't wait till an accident takes place to make any changes. We need to be constantly looking to see if there are any hazards within our classrooms or labs that could cause an accident. Believe me, just that kind of foresight can save a whole lot of heartache and a whole lot of litigation if we just practice safety and think safety and live safety in front of our students. Proper and correct language. We need to talk the talk, and that's using proper English. We don't need to talk like them. We have got to be kind of separated from them. We're not going to gain their respect by just kind of getting on their level. Self-improvement. You and I need to learn more about our profession. We need to increase our skill as both vocational educators and as teachers. I always welcome the opportunity to go to any kind of in-service or any kind of training, because there's always something new for me to learn. I don't have all the answers. And you know what? I don't know anybody who does. Adequate instruction. You and I need to teach our students. You and I haven't been hired as a babysitter. Feel free to disagree with me, and that won't hurt my feelings one bit, but I don't think a copied definition sheet is going to suffice for a lesson in what it is you're trying to teach them. I'm afraid we've got too many teachers in our profession that all they want to do is keep the students busy. And they'll be doing math tables, they'll be doing math worksheets, and English and reading worksheets, science worksheets, and doing all those things while the teacher's sitting there playing solitaire on their computer, or else streaming a video on it. That's not teaching. You and I need to provide adequate instruction, and in vocational classes it's critical, because we're teaching skills. We've got to show them the skills. And adequate standards of performance, that kind of gets into the evaluation realm. Whenever we test our students to see if they're learning, what are the standards that they have to meet for an A, for a B, C, D, and what do they have to do to fail? So they need to know that. And then finally, positive emphasis. Always try to find some positive thing that they're doing and kind of build on that. Even though they're sometimes major mess-ups, at least find something positive that they can take from that and work to get better. So this sort of wraps up this nice little short PowerPoint for this chapter. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording right here and go ahead and get your assignments and so forth ready for chapter 4.